Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Driti and you're watching Skyline again. Tonight, again, I want to ask you one simple question. What if everything that you knew about moving abroad, working in America, settling in Canada, or maybe building your dream life, it suddenly changed? For years, not just thousands, but lakhs of Indian students, software engineers, and professionals have believed just one thing, that if they study hard, if they get a good job and secure H-1B visa or maybe a Canadian PR, their future is almost guaranteed. Sadly, I want to say, not anymore. So tonight, we are not just reading headlines here, we are connecting the dots, because every story that you will hear today, it affects somebody. Maybe your brother, maybe your daughter, maybe your friend, or maybe you. So let's begin with America tonight, where one decision could completely change how Indians get an H-1B visa. Well, can you imagine this for a moment here? You are a software engineer from Bengaluru, India. You have worked for years. You finally receive a phone call from a US company. They say, "Congratulations, we are filing your H-1B." For years, that phone call, it meant that your American dream was now beginning. Today, it does not, because the rules have changed, and not just a little, they have changed completely. The US government has decided that salary and not luck, it will now play a much bigger role in deciding who gets an H-1B visa. Think about that for a moment. Earlier, thousands of applicants entered the H-1B lottery with almost equal chances. Fresh graduates, entry-level engineers, experienced professionals, everybody, they hoped luck would be on their side. But now America is asking one question first. How much are you worth? The higher your salary is, the better your chances are. The lower your salary, the smaller your opportunities are. And that is a massive, massive shift, because thousands of Indian engineers begin their career at entry-level salary. Many join consulting companies and they may work through outsourcing firms. Those firms build their entire business model around hiring young engineers at lowest salary level. Now, that model, it is under pressure. The government is also planning to increase the minimum salary companies must pay the foreign workers. So that means companies will have to spend much more money before sponsoring an H-1B visa. Now think like an employer here. If hiring one foreign engineer, it suddenly becomes far more expensive for you. Will every company continue sponsoring visa? Probably not. Instead, many companies may ask, let me quote it, "Can we hire an American instead? Or maybe, can we move this job to India?" And you know what? That is why this policy is not just about immigration. It's about jobs, it's about salary, it's about business strategy here. But yes, there is another twist here. If somebody is already inside America, perhaps studying there on an F1 visa, they may have a better chance than somebody applying directly from India, because certain additional costs may not apply in the same way. So, the race is definitely changing. It is no longer simply India versus America. It is becoming inside America versus outside America. And yes, there is another reason companies are becoming cautious here. US authorities are increasing inspections. Here, officials want to ensure companies are not inflating salaries on paper just to improve visa selection chances. If a company claims somebody is doing senior level work but actually assigns a junior level responsibility, it could face investigation. Applications must be rejected. The consequences could be severe. So today, companies are thinking twice. Lawyers are checking every document. HR departments are reviewing every salary, and Indian professionals are asking one difficult question. Will my dream job still exist? Well, the message coming from America, it is becoming extremely clear. The country, it still wants skilled talent, but it wants fewer people, fewer salaries, and more specialized workers here. Well, the days of getting selected through luck alone, they are slowly fading down. America has not closed the doors, I'm not saying that, but it has definitely made the entrance much narrower. And yes, if you think that America has become tougher, wait until you hear what Canada has done. For years, Canada was considered the backup plan for maybe thousands of Indians. Today, that backup plan, it is also changing. Let's travel from Washington to Ottawa here. For years, one sentence, it became incredibly popular among Indian students. Let me quote it for you. If America does not work, I will go to Canada. Simple, safe, predictable, study, get a permit, in fact, apply for a permanent residency, build a life. That was the dream. But today, Canada is rewriting that dream. The Canadian government has announced major changes to immigration, permanent residency target, and temporary work permit. The biggest change is that there are now stricter annual limit on how many people they can become permanent residents. So that means even if you qualify, even if you score well, and even if your documents are perfect, you may still have to wait because the yearly quota, it has already been lifted. Can you imagine spending years studying in Canada, paying international tuition fee, working part-time, getting a full-time job, and believing that PR is only one step away? Then suddenly you are told that, please wait. Not because you made a mistake here, but because there is simply no room that is left this year. That uncertainty, it is now becoming reality for many applicants. Canada is also changing who gets priority, by the way. Earlier, many skilled professionals outside Canada, they had realistic chances through express entry. Now the focus is shifting. The government is giving more importance to people who already have Canadian work experience. In fact, nomination, French language proficiency, or maybe qualification in selected sectors such as healthcare and specialized STEM role. In other words, just having a tech degree, it's no longer enough. You need something really extra. Maybe a better language score, maybe more Canadian experience, maybe a nomination or skills that Canada urgently needs. You know what? For Indian graduates who are working on post-graduation work permits, this creates another challenge. Their permits have an expiry date, but the PR invitation, it may not arrive before that. And when the permits expire, the clock starts ticking. Should they leave Canada? Should they change their status? Should they wait? Well, these are no longer theoretical questions. These are real decisions affecting thousands of families. And perhaps the biggest psychological change is this. For years, Canada was seen as the easiest path to settle abroad. Well, that perception is now changing. Canada is not saying that it does not want immigrants. It is saying that we want fewer people just like the US, and we want to choose them more carefully. Well, that is completely different message here. For Indians who are planning their future, for professionals comparing the US and Canada, and for the families investing maybe lakhs of rupees in overseas education, well, this changes the entire calculation. The road to permanent residency has become longer, more competitive, more uncertain, and much more expensive if delays continue. The question is no longer, can I move to Canada? The real question has become, can I stay there permanently? Now, let's hop on to our third segment tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Let me ask you another question here. When people talk about H-1B visas, who do they usually talk about? Well, the software engineers, the IT professionals, the person working in Silicon Valley. But today, the real crisis is not only affecting the H-1B workers, it is affecting the entire family. That's right, imagine a husband and wife living in America. One is working on an H-1B visa. The other one has finally built a career after receiving permission to work on an H-4 employment authorization document. It's also known as H-4 EAD. Maybe she's a software engineer. Maybe she works in healthcare, or he works in healthcare. Maybe he or she is financial analyst. After years of waiting, he or she finally has their own career, their own salary, their own identity. Now, for a moment, can you imagine waking up one morning and finding that none of that matters anymore because your work permit, it has expired? Under the new rule, the moment your H-4 EAD expires, your legal right to work, it also ends. Even if you have already applied for renewal and your application is still pending with immigration authorities. For thousands of Indian families, this is becoming a frightening reality. Earlier, applicants who filed their renewal on time received an automatic extension while the government processed their application. Well, that gave the families some kind of peace of mind here. They also continue working, continue paying the bills, and continue living normally. But that automatic protection, it has now ended for new applications, creating a situation where many people could suddenly lose the right to work while simply waiting for their paperwork. And here's where the whole situation it becomes even more shocking. Immigration rule allow people to apply for renewals only a limited number of months before their card expires. But current processing time, they are much longer than that. So even if somebody follows every rule perfectly, submit every document on time, and does everything the government asks them to do, they may still face a long period where they cannot legally work because their new cards have not arrived yet. Now, think about what that really means for a family. One salary disappears overnight. The mortgage, it still has to be paid. The car loan still has to be paid. Children's school fee, it has to be paid. Medical insurance. Life does not stop because immigration paperwork is delayed. And employers have no choice either. Companies must follow the law. If an employee's work authorization expires, HR department are legally required to stop that employee from working until new authorization is received. Well, it does not matter whether the person is best performer on the team or not, or maybe have worked there for 10 years. Rules are rules. And that is why thousands of Indian families are feeling nervous. Well, this is no longer just an immigration issue. It has become a financial issue. It has become a family issue. It has become an emotional issue. Many immigration lawyers, they are now advising families to prepare much earlier than before. If possible, they are asking applicants to coordinate their H-1B and H-4 filing together so processing can move faster through premium processing where it is applicable. Others are urging families not to wait until the last moment because every single day it now matters. Well, message coming from America, it is becoming clear. Planning is no longer optional. If your documents expire, your career can stop overnight. And for thousands of Indian families, that possibility has become one of their biggest fear. But yes, even if your visa is perfectly valid, another danger is waiting. Because right now, across America, some of the world's biggest tech companies are cutting jobs, and thousands of Indians are caught in the middle. There was a time when getting a job at Google, Microsoft, Amazon, or Meta, it meant one thing. You have made it. Parents celebrated, friends congratulated you, LinkedIn post went viral, life felt secure. But today, that feeling of security is disappearing. According to tech industry, more than 100,000 professionals have lost their jobs. And what makes this wave different is that these are not any small companies struggling to survive. These are some of the richest companies in the world. The biggest surprise is that this time layoffs are not limited to recruiters or marketing team. Even experienced software engineers, engineering managers, architects, and senior technical officials, they are being affected. Entire teams are disappearing as companies reorganize themselves around artificial intelligence. Now think about that for a moment here. AI is creating new opportunities. I do understand that. But at the same time, it is replacing old ones. Companies are investing billions of dollars into AI infrastructure, advanced chips, massive data centers, and automation. Well, that money has to come from somewhere, right? In many cases, it is coming from payroll budgets. Now imagine if you are an Indian engineer working in America on an H-1B visa. You lose your job today, you just don't lose your salary. You just don't lose your office. You just don't lose your employee. You also begin a countdown because H-1B workers generally receive only a limited grace period to find another sponsoring employer, changing their immigration status, or maybe leave the country. 60 days. Well, that may sound like a lot of time to you, but finding another company willing to sponsor a visa in today's market, it is becoming harder than ever. Thousands of experienced engineers, they are competing for same position. Some companies have reduced hiring, others have slowed the visa sponsorship. Competition, it is becoming intense by every single day. Well, for many Indian professionals, this creates a lot of pressure. Every interview becomes important. Every phone call matters. Every email could decide whether they stay in America or return home. Some professionals are now exploring different immigration options, by the way, while others are looking at opportunities in India's rapidly growing global capabilities center, where many multinational companies are expanding their engineering operation here. You know what? The definition of career security has changed. A big company name on your resume, it is no longer enough. A high salary is no longer enough, even years of experience, no longer enough. Today's professionals, they must always be prepared. Keep their documents ready, keep their network active, keep their skills updated, and always have a backup plan, because in today's tech industry, success is no longer about getting a job. It is about being ready if you suddenly lose it. And yes, if you thought losing your job was stressful, wait until you hear what tax authorities in India and America can now see. Because the next story is about money, overseas bank accounts, and a new era where maybe hiding financial information is becoming more impossible. Now, let me ask you something here. How many Indians living in America have a bank account in both the nations? One account in the US for salary and another account in India for family expenses. Some have investment, some have stocks, some have mutual funds, some have property. For years, many NRIs believe these financial details stayed within the country where the money was kept. If you earned money in America, you dealt with American tax authorities. If you had assets in India, you dealt with Indian tax authorities. The world, well, it is now changing, sadly. Today, India and the United States are sharing much more financial information than ever before. Tax authorities can now access details about certain overseas financial accounts and investment income through international reporting system, making it much harder for foreign assets to go unnoticed. Think about what this means. If you are an Indian working in the US, your financial life is no longer divided into two separate countries. It has become one connected system. The days when people believed that foreign accounts would remain completely invisible, they are slowly coming to an end. Now, this does not mean that every NRI has done something wrong here, not at all. Most people honestly pay all the taxes, but tax rules between India and the US are complicated. An income that may be tax-free in one country could still need to be reported in another. A simple mistake, a misdisclosure, and an incorrect filing, it can create a problem for you. Imagine working in California for 10 years. You save your money, you invest very carefully, you plan to return to India after retirement. Then suddenly you discover that an overseas account or investment should have been declared very differently because the reporting rule has changed. And this is why financial planning is becoming just as important as immigration planning. Experts now advise NRIs to review their tax filing carefully, understand their residency status, and make sure every required declaration is complete before filing return. The message is simple here. Governments are becoming more digital. Tech is becoming faster. Financial systems are becoming more connected. And that means transparency is becoming the new normal. If you have worked very honestly, filed correctly, and maintained very proper records here, there is nothing to fear. But ignoring paperwork or assuming nobody will notice you, it is becoming much more bigger risk than ever before. Well, for Indians living across borders, managing money today, it's no longer just about earning more. It's about reporting it correctly. Because let's be honest here, in 2026, your money may travel across countries, but your financial information travels even faster. And yes, while governments are changing the way they monitor the money, they are also changing the way they monitor immigration. Because America has now announced one of the biggest immigration overhaul in years. If you thought that earlier immigration changes were enough, wait, there is more, much more. The US is introducing another set of changes that could affect international students, H-1B workers, and even people who are waiting for green card. For decades, many international students entered America under a system called duration of status. As long as they continued studying and followed immigration rules, they could legally remain in the country throughout their academic program. Now that system is changing. The government is replacing it with a fixed period of stay for many students, meaning that they may need to apply for extension if their studies continue far beyond the permitted time here. At the very same time, the grace period after completing studies, that is also shortening. Think about the pressure this creates. Imagine starting a PhD or conducting long-term research, or maybe studying in a program that takes longer than expected. Earlier, universities handled much more of the paperwork. Now, students may have to deal more directly with immigration authorities if they need extra time. Well, for thousands of Indians, this means more planning, more paperwork, more uncertainty. But you know what? Students are not only just the ones who are affected. The cost of faster immigration processing has also increased. Premium processing fee for several important immigration applications have gone up, making visa and work permit applications more expensive for both individuals and employers. And at the same time, the government is proposing higher prevailing wages requirement for H-1B jobs. That means company may have to offer higher salaries before sponsoring the foreign workers. Now, can you think about the impact here? If sponsoring an H-1B becomes more expensive, will every company continue hiring the international worker here? Or will some decide that the cost is simply too high? Well, that is the question many employers are asking today. And when comes another important change here, green card application could face more detailed financial reviews, with immigration officers taking a broader look at an applicant's overall financial circumstances during the process. Taken individually, each of these changes, they may seem manageable to you, but together, they completely change the immigration landscape. Students face quicker timeline, professionals face higher salary requirement, employers face rising cost, families face more paperwork, everyone faces more planning. The American dream is not disappearing, but it is becoming far more complicated than it was just a few years ago. Success today, it is no longer just about getting admission in a job or getting an H-1B or maybe finding a job here. Success now depends on understanding the rule, planning months in advance, and staying prepared for changes that can happen at any moment. And yes, while America is changing immigration rule here, something unexpected is happening thousands of kilometers away in Hyderabad. Well, for years, Hyderabad, which is in India, has proudly earned the title of India's tech capital. Every year, thousands of software engineers return from America with bigger salaries, bought apartments, invested in land, and helped drive the city's booming real estate market. Many families believe that if somebody in the family was working in the US, buying property in Hyderabad, that was one of the safest investments they could make. But today, that confidence is beginning to change. Ladies and gentlemen, the slowdown in the American tech industry is now affecting India's property market as well. As layoffs continue across major US companies, many NRIs are becoming more cautious about spending. Instead of buying a new apartment or investing in another property, they are choosing to save the money because no one knows what the next month can actually bring to them. Can you think about how connected the world economy really is? A company announces layoffs in California, an Indian engineer loses confidence about job security. That family postpones buying a flat in Hyderabad. Builders receive fewer bookings. Property consultants notice slow demand here. Banks approve fewer home loans. One decision taken thousands of kilometers away slowly, it begins affecting an entire different economy. In the meantime, real estate experts say that many NRI buyers are now taking a wait and watch approach. They are not saying no to property forever. That's not what I'm saying. They are simply delaying major financial decisions until the job market becomes more stable. Developers are now feeling the change here. Projects that once sold quickly are now seeing buyers ask for more time before making a commitment here. Families want certainty before making investment worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. After all, buying a home, it is often the biggest financial decision of a person's life. Well, for Indians who are working in America, this creates another difficult question. Should they continue investing in India while global uncertainty remains high? Or should they hold on to cash until and unless the economy becomes more predictable? Well, there is no single answer here. Every family situation, it is different. What is becoming clear, however, is that today's economy is deeply interconnected. A tech layoff in the US no longer remains an American story. It travels across oceans, it reaches in Indian cities, it changes investment decisions, it affects businesses, it influences jobs. Well, the world has become so closely linked that one headline in Silicon Valley, it can very quietly reshape somebody's future in Hyderabad. And yes, while families are delaying the investment, another financial burden is quietly growing. Because for Indians moving abroad, the cost of immigration itself, it is becoming much more expensive. Well, studying abroad has never been cheap, right? Moving overseas has never been easy. But today, the cost of building an international future is rising faster than ever before. Whether it is a visa application, immigration paperwork, premium processing, legal fee, university tuition fee, or living expenses, almost every step of the journey, it is becoming more expensive. Imagine a middle-class Indian family. Parents spend years saving the money. They take education loan. They use retirement saving. Sometimes they even sell property so that their child can study in the US or Canada. For them, studying abroad is not just education, it is an investment in the family's future. Now imagine that while tuition fees, it continues increasing. Visa costs also rise, immigration processing becomes more expensive. Living expenses, they go up because of inflation. And after graduating, finding a job becomes more competitive than ever before. Suddenly, the financial calculation, it changes everything. Families are now asking difficult questions before sending their children overseas. Is the return on investment still worth it? Will my child find a job? Will permanent residency become possible? Or will they return home carrying both a degree and a large education loan? Universities are also facing growing competition for international students, by the way. Some countries are tightening immigration rules, while others are trying to attract more skilled talent. Students now have more choices than ever before, but they also face more uncertainty than ever before. Immigration experts, in the meantime, believe that families should now plan much more carefully than they did a few years ago. Instead of focusing only on getting admission, they should also think about long-term employment opportunity, immigration pathways, financial planning, and backup options. Ladies and gentlemen, the dream of studying abroad, it is still alive. It is. Millions of Indians will continue pursuing opportunities around the globe, but the journey, that is no longer as straightforward as it once seemed. Today's success depends not only on academic performance, it depends on planning, it depends on finances, it depends on understanding immigration rule, and above all, it depends on being prepared for the change. So after visa changes, layoffs, taxes, immigration reforms, and rising costs, what does all of this really mean? That brings us to our final story and the biggest takeaway from today's Skyline. So after everything we have discussed tonight, if you look at every story we covered today, you will notice one common pattern. America is becoming more selective about skilled workers. Canada is becoming more selective about permanent residency. Companies are becoming more careful about hiring. Governments are becoming stricter about immigration compliance. Tax authorities are becoming more connected, and families are becoming more and more cautious about spending and investment. So in the end, ask yourself, is the dream abroad, is it still worth it or not? And with that, I will wrap up today's Skyline edition. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Driti. Well, I'll see you in the next episode.